Okie doke, welcome back everybody. We are going to take a look at Vista on a typical Sunday morning. How to design lighting looks. When you open up the program, this is basically what you're going to see. And the first thing that I do on a given Sunday when I set out to program is I take a look through my last week and I see if there's anything I want to save from this previous week. Things that I might save is if I just programmed a new song and I want to be able to quickly recall that song so I don't have to redo it in a subsequent week, I can do that. If there's something particularly cool, maybe I did a song and I really like the way it looked and I want to make that my new cue list for that song that I default to, I'll do that. Do you have a new song called Awesome God last week, or Such an Awesome God, or whatever it's called? I will show you how to save parts of your cue list if you'd like. What you do is you click on the cue that you would like, hold shift until the end of the song, then you can go copy cue, right click and copy cue. Then what you'll do is you will go to new. That will open up a new cue list. You can delete the cue that automatically pops in there, and then you can go to paste cue. It's going to give you some questions about time code. You don't have to worry about that. You can just hit disable. And then what I'm going to do is I need to save this. The easiest way to save is you just close it, and it will give you an option to save. We have kind of a way that we name cue lists just so we can keep track of them. We name it after the song. Then we do a dash. Then I do the month and the year I made it in. So this one was made in March of 2021. And then I just put my initials in. That way I know it's one of mine as opposed to one of Nate's, because we all program slightly differently. And we want to give it an ID somewhere in the 300s. You want to find an open space in there. The easiest way to do that is if you just set your value to 300, it'll tell you it's invalid because there's already a cue there, and then you just hit the up arrow and it will find the next available one. So in this case, 302 looks like it's open. So I will hit save and release. So now if we jump over here and show our song cue lists, you can see, or rather all cue lists, you can see now that Such an Awesome God is an option in there. So if I wanted to reuse that song, I could drag it in. I will show you how to do that as we build through this week. Back to my preset view. So once I've saved everything that I want to save, pop back in, and I like to start from a clean slate every week. Some of our programmers like to keep things that are in every week. So for example, like the message, that happens every week. They like to keep that in there. I just like to start from a fresh slate every week. It takes me maybe an extra 10-15 minutes to redo things, but I feel like it gives me a lot more control, and I'm able to smooth things out and overall make everything look a little bit more excellent by just taking a little bit extra time. So I like to start from a fresh slate. Just gives me a chance to make sure everything looks good and make subtle adjustments from week to week without feeling like I've got too much pressure to stick with what I did the previous week. So I'm going to delete everything except for the pre-service and countdown, because those are literally always the same. So we're going to delete 37 cues. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up Planning Center here and get my service order. We will pull up this Sunday, and I'm going to drag this off screen for you guys, but you can just trust me what we've got there. So first thing we've got is a song called Open the Gates, and so the first thing I'll do is I will check to see if I have a cue list called Open the Gates already. So we'll go cue lists into all. I'll see what I've got. Do I have an Open the Gates? Doesn't look like I do. So that means we'll start this one from scratch, which is good because you'll get to see how to do this. So the first thing we do is we hit the plus button to add another cue. You'll see it adds a number, and we will name it Open the Gates. So now what I'm going to do is I am just going to start to set lights how I want them to look for the beginning portion of this song. So the first thing is I always take advantage of these presets. So this is a song, so the first thing I will do is I will put our worship preset for our house lights. So make sure that you click off in dead space here somewhere to make sure everything's deselected. And you click on house worship and it will adjust the house lights. You can see it just applied a preset over here. We'll click off again. And I also want to put the spots as they're set up for worship. We use these presets because they help with our cameras. They make sure that we're giving a consistent amount of light to the cameras from week to week. That way we aren't having to make tons of adjustments on the fly all the time. So with the house worship and the spots set to worship, now I'll go in and we will start to program a song. First thing I typically do is I pick a color that I want to work in. It doesn't really matter. If you're using motion backgrounds, it's really nice to take your color cues from your motion background. But if you aren't using motion backgrounds, I'm not this week. I will literally just kind of make something arbitrary. So you can see we've got a couple lights turned on already from the countdown. So the first thing I will do is I'll just turn all those off. That way I'm starting from a nice blank slate. And open the gates. I think we're going to make this song kind of purpley blue. So I'll set my color over here. And what I usually like to do is I like to grab all of my lights, kind of set them to the same color to start with. I may change that as we go, but starting with a nice even color space is usually a great place to start. So then we're just going to start building our look. I normally work in this programming view, but I'm going to jump over to the visual view so that you guys have a little bit better idea of what I'm doing. So the first thing I like to think about is I like to think of lights in 3 different kind of zones. The first zone is the furthest away from me, and that is my backlight and kind of like base color wash that I set up. I typically am using these lights in the ceiling as well as these 4 lights on the side to accomplish that. The next layer forward is kind of my fun lights that I use to give energy to the song. So that's pretty much everything else on screen here. We'll get to those. But then the third layer, the furthest layer forward, is my spotlights, what I'm actually using to light up people on stage. So those are kind of the 3 ways that I think through of lights. So we'll start with our back wash there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back row of lights up in the ceiling, and I'm going to set them, they're on that purple color, and I'm going to set them to an intensity that I think looks good. Want to be careful that we aren't putting too much light in the room because we don't want to blow out cameras or give everybody weirdly colored halos around themselves when they're on camera. 35 seems to be a pretty good safe number. I might go 5 higher. This plus and 5 is a really nice button here. You can kind of just nudge things up a little bit. So you obviously can't see the room right now, but I'm looking and I kind of like the way that looks. There's a nice kind of bluish purple glow. Also, for what it's worth, I'm colorblind, so if I ever say a color that doesn't make any sense, don't worry. Trust your eyes, not my words. But yeah, I've got this nice kind of purpley glow on stage. I think I also want to add in these 4 lights on the very sides. Those lights, 10% seems to be the right number. They tend to point in people's face a little bit, so I keep them a little bit lower. That's a really good piece of advice in general. As you're programming, occasionally you'll just want to get up out of your chair, walk around the room, make sure you aren't like totally blinding somebody in a random section, because some of these lights aren't pointed at you while you're programming. So you just want to make sure that you're being conscious of what's around, that all of our guests have a really good experience, that there isn't someone who's just, got a nice purple light taking their eyeballs off the entire morning. So that looks pretty good. That looks like a nice base there. Another thing that is worth having in front of you is I will typically screen share into our Ableton computer so that I can start to see what's going on here. So I'm going to pull this off screen too, but basically all I'll be doing is I'll go into open the gates here and I'll just kind of click through sections of the song and listen and then just kind of come up with what I want to happen there. So open the gate starts with this nice little swelly ambient intro. Sometimes it's nice to turn the original track on too, which I usually do. I usually program with the track on. I need to go turn on the soundboard. Be right back. Okay, now I should be able to hear that. I'll also get click and cues that I listen to as well. Intro 2, 3, there we go. 4. So that's got this nice long swelly intro that kind of builds and then drops into like a more energetic intro right about here. So what I will do is we'll start with this kind of pretty simple, just some backlight, and I also have the front lights on because I'm fairly certain our worship leaders will be talking there, so we want to make sure that we can see who's talking. And then what we'll do is, we'll wait until the music really starts to build up, about to drop into that intro there, and then we'll do a nice little light swell to follow as the band kind of swells in before they drop into that up intro there. So we will take this, and I think what I'll do is I'll probably bring in these overhead blinders, as well as the two on the outsides there, and we'll probably get those pretty bright, I would think. Seems about right. And I also think I want to bring in something further down on the stage so you can see all these blinders are on now. I also want to bring in these lights. We'll probably, again, these are a lot brighter, so they probably only need to be at about 10 or 15%. And I also want to match them to the color of the blinders, so I'm just going to visually kind of find a color that matches in the room. So that seems like they're pretty similar. So now I've got this really nice yellow-orange kind of incandescent glow coming back at me. Obviously you can't see that, but we'll do that. And then I want this to be a longer swell. So right now, you can see that's only a 2-second cue. So if I go back and then play this, it's going to go whoosh, this nice quick 2-second fade. I want it to be a little slower, a little more dramatic than that. So maybe we'll try 6 and see what we think of that. Yeah, that might be a little slow. Let's go to 5. So we'll have this nice big swell in, and then the intro is going to come in, and the whole band will be in. So we'll call this big intro. So then I got to think, what do I want to happen during the big intro? Well, I think I want to, first off, turn these lights down because they'll be right in people's eyes, so I don't want to leave them on for too long. These blinders, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a nice little twinkly effect with them. So what I'll do is I'll go over to my smart effects. I'll go to new effect, and I want a swing effect. That's my favorite kind of way to do this, but there's different ways. A wave effect allows you to adjust parameters of lights on preset wavelengths. So you can make them a sine wave or a saw wave or a triangle wave. You can play around with those. Swing effect bounces those parameters back and forth between 2 points. So I want an intensity effect that's going to be a swing effect. And so you'll see right now I have a bunch of different parameters over here. So I want those lights to go from 0 to 70. So you can see we've kind of got this little like side to side twinkle thing going right now. I really like that, but I actually want I want to change the order that it happens in. So I'll go over to sequence, and I'm going to change the order to random. So now you can see those lights are just kind of randomly twinkling back and forth. That looks pretty good, but I think there's actually, I want to play with what's called the overlap of this a little bit. What that does is if I pull this all the way down to 0, you can see how now only one light is lit up at a time. So I want to go until I feel like I've got the higher I go, the more lights will be on at once. So I want, basically, like, I'm adjusting the density of how many lights are on at once. So 80% seems to look pretty good. And the other thing is that it's happening a little slow for my liking. So I'm going to take the rate and I'm going to bump it up a little bit. That looks pretty good. Go up one more just so it's a round number. So we have this nice random twinkle of those blinder lights that's going. So I like that. The other thing that I want to do is I want to start to bring some more purple in. So I'm going to take these lights that I set to this kind of like greeny yellow color, and I want to get them back to my purple. So they're going to become that purple color too. So we will have this big swell as the thing builds up, and then as the band drops in, that twinkle will start, things will get purple. And I think I also want to add in some stuff from my movers down here. These are my 4 big movers on stage. These are kind of my big high impact lights. They're by far the brightest lights we own, and they make the biggest difference. So I'm going to set them to 85, and I think I want them to be white. And then I'm going to move them around. So right now they're pointed straight up, but I want to tip them forward a little bit. Oop, can't go that far. If I go that far, I just hit the drums with one of them. So I'm going to put it right there. And I also think I want to add maybe a gobo into them. Right now they're just circles, and I think I want them to be something a little cooler. So I think I'll make them squares. Those look pretty cool. And also want to spin them. So let's try spinning them all in the same direction. That's decent. I think I like that. Although I think I'd like it better if they were like mirrored. So I think I'm going to take these two. I'm going to spin them the opposite direction. So I'll make them go -25. So that way these ones are spinning clockwise, these ones are spinning counterclockwise. Yeah, I like that. That's a good look. So we'll make that our look for the big intro. And we'll use that all the way up until the next section of the song, which is a verse. So I would expect the band will kind of calm down a little bit, be a little bit more in the middle with their dynamics. Yep, that's exactly what happens. So we'll add a cue for the verse. Alright, so I'm going to turn these blinders off because I want to take some of the energy away. I'm also going to turn these movers down. And I think that's a pretty good look right there. So we'll let that carry for the verse. After that is, I believe, a chorus. Yep, there's a chorus. And I want to do a little push into the chorus. Kind of swell in. The band's going to have a nice dynamic swell there, so we'll do a little bit of the same thing with our lights. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to get those blinders back out, and we'll do exactly what we did at the beginning, but we'll do it a tiny bit faster, 4 seconds instead of 5. So we'll push those in, and then we'll get a chorus look. Ooh, that's not quite what I wanted to spell. Chorus. Sweet. Alright, so I think I'm going to go back to that twinkle that I had in the big intro. So I could recreate that manually. The other thing I can do is I can go to the cue that it's in, select the lights that are doing it, and just go Command-C to copy. Come over to the cue I want them in, paste, and it will steal that effect. And so now those guys are moving. So I like that. But I think I want to add a tiny bit more. So I think I'm going to take my bar lights and bring them into the equation. This will be a really good example of why I like my programming view. Those bar lights are kind of spread out, so in order to grab them, I'd have to get really precise here. But I'm literally just going to take them and grab the ones on the side too. And I'm going to add an effect to them as well. Another twinkle. Do a double twinkle thing. These bars are also pretty bright, so 10 is going to be more than enough for them. For the sake of you being able to see it, I'm going to bump it up a lot. It's going to hurt my eyes, but we'll make the sacrifice. You can see I've got this colorful thing going top to bottom. What I want is, again, I want it to be random. So I want each individual light to kind of twinkle back and forth. And same thing as before, I like that, but there's too much on right now. So I'm going to pull this overlap back, and it will take the density down so there's a little more negative space. Gonna keep going. Oop, that's a little much. Yeah, right there. That looks really good. And then I'm going to take the intensity back. I'm going to remember to take the intensity back down because that's way too bright. I don't want that much. I only want about 10. Yeah, that looks real good. So that'll be my chorus look. And basically, I'm going to do exactly what I just did, and I'm going to do that over and over and over again for each point in the song. And that will get us a nice song when it's all said and done. So I'll check back in once I'm done with this song, and then we'll see where we get to. Alrighty, so I'm still working on this song. You can see I haven't made a ton of progress. That's because the next section after the chorus, we hit another interlude that is pretty much identical to the big intro that we just did. And then after that, the song goes into a verse and then another chorus. So basically, these 4 cues, I think I can just repeat them again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of them. So I'm going to click, hold shift, and click again. That will get me all of them there. And I'm going to go to copy. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to paste cue. And so now I've got that intro again. Chills out for a verse. Swells in. And then gets me another chorus. So you can copy cues. So if you've got something you like, don't feel like you've got to recreate it by any means. You can right click, copy, and paste it again. And that will save you some time, especially because a lot of times a song has multiple choruses and it's totally okay if they all look the same. So save yourself the time, copy, paste, use whatever you need to. Once you've copied it, you can make some adjustments if you want. So maybe this chorus I also wanted to add in, you know, these lights a little bit. Actually, that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to do that. I could totally do that, but this chorus, those will stay off. So you can make that happen as well. All right, I'm going to keep working. I will see you at the end of the song. Hey there, everybody. Just ran into something that is worth explaining. So I've got this in Open the Gates here coming out of the bridge. There's this section where the bridge kind of builds up and then everything like does like this real abrupt drop out to like a vocals only thing. I'll let you listen to it. So it's one of those like band kind of builds to nothing and then it's just vocals. So what I'm doing is I've got this nice push in, then I've got this really quick snap where those lights drop out and my movers just kind of are popping and doing this cool little like vertical beam thing. Trouble is they are, because this is a 0-second cue, they actually don't have enough time to change over. So when they come on, what you're seeing in the room is you're seeing them actually cycle through their gobos to get to the beam that I want them to be on, which is this little beam right here. So you're seeing them actually snap through their settings to get to that. So I actually want to show you how to work around that. What I'm going to do, even though these lights are off, they have 0 intensity, I'm going to have them change their gobos sometime back here in this second bridge cue. So I'm going to take these and I'm actually going to put them on the settings that I want them to be on. So now, I don't even know that you'll be able to see it, but they're going to change their gobos here. Even though they don't turn on, they're going to, in black, change their setting. Then this is going to push in. And so now, when I play this really fast dropout cue, they're just going to snap on and they don't have to change their gobo anymore because they're already got their setting. This is a really good time for me to talk about timeline view. I'm gonna open this up here, and this is really the where all the like power users of Vista will live. So this is a terrible cue to look at it on, but you can see I've got some things that are changing their intensity, I've got some things that are changing their color, and I've got some things that are changing their gobo wheel. This gobo wheel is actually old because I just made him change over here, so I can actually go in and delete that. So now this queue doesn't have any information about what they should do with their gobo wheels, so they're just going to hold on to whatever they had. So I'm actually changing to what I want over here, and then we turn the lights on over here. So you can see if I expand this intensity thing, I've got a whole bunch of lights that I'm turning off, and I've got a couple lights that I'm turning on full all the way at the end there. Let me jump to a queue that's got a little bit more time on it. We'll do this initial open the gates here. So you can see, and in this queue, I've got all kinds of stuff changing intensity. So I've got a bunch of lights turning off. I've got some lights going to a preset. I've got some lights going to a set value. All of those kind of things over the course of this 2 seconds. So you can almost think Ableton at this point. When this cue plays, you can see this head moves across, and it kind of will do what all of these tracks, they're actually lights, tell it to do. So for example, I've got that there, and then I've got some stuff that's changing colors all down here. And what this means is that I can affect when everything happens. So let's say, for example, I'm going to make a new cue down here at the end that I probably won't use, but I'll show you. Let's say I want these lights to turn on, I want these lights to turn on, and I want them to become red. But what I want is I want them to be red before they turn on, so that they just kind of fade up as red. I don't want them to like fade up and be changing from blue to red in the process. So what I can do is I can go into my timeline, and I can say, hey, all this color information, I actually want you to happen faster. I want you to happen all the way at the beginning. So they're going to snap to their color in 0 seconds, and then over 2 seconds they're going to fade in. Or I can extend that out and say, maybe I want you to take 1 second to get your color transition, but 2 seconds to get your intensity. And I can slide that around. So maybe I want you to start fading in as a purple, and then halfway through the fade start to get red. I can totally do that, and I can open this up, and I can make that, you know, for each individual thing. So maybe I want these lights to change their color early and these lights to change their color late. You can do all of that here in the timeline view by dragging stuff around. So that's a super helpful way to get things looking exactly the way you want. You can really micromanage stuff and get things doing exactly how you want them to operate from the timeline view here. Another cool thing that's worth showing you guys, I think. This is a thing that I like to do a lot in my programming is big punchy flashes to just kind of like accentuate certain points. So in Open the Gates, we have this kind of down chorus that gets big in the middle. So here's what that sounds like. So there's kind of that like little vocals only bit at the beginning, there's a big drum fill, and then the whole band drops back in. Moments like that, I like to use the lights to kind of accentuate that. So what I'll do is I'll have some kind of really, really fast cue like this, like a 0 second thing. And if you notice, what's going to happen is all these lights are going to change to white, and they're almost all going to turn on. Like you can see they all turned on a little bit, except for these guys. I didn't like the way it looked with these guys, which is preference. But so right now the room is a lot brighter. You obviously can't see that, but there's a lot of light on stage. So for this little brief second, it's going to snap everything to white, and then immediately after that, we're going to go to this chorus cue, which is going to fade everything down to the color and bring that colored look back in. So in the room, what that looks like is the lights just all of a sudden snap and give you this almost like a flash bulb going off thing. Bang! And then it goes into your chorus look. And so when we go back through and set the timing for all these cues, we'll make this chorus happen real fast so that it goes bang! bang, and you get this nice big flash, and then everything kind of goes back to its normal thing. That's a effect that I like to use. You obviously, with everything, you want to be intentional with when you use it. Too much is a bad thing, but it can be a really nice way to kind of accentuate certain moments in a song. I just wrapped up the song, and yeah, so we now have the entire song done from beginning to end here. The next thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to set the cue numbers so that they're all in the threes. So the easiest way to do this is to select them all. So click, hold shift, click again, right click, renumber cues. We want the first number to be 3, and we want them to go up by 0.1. Then we hit OK, and you can see, so now it's 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. This helps because if you'll notice in Planning Center here, we have a cue number for each service element, and that means that just keeps all of them organized. So all of the open the gate stuff is going to be 3. So I've got those looks done all the way for the song. Songs are by far the hardest part, so now next thing in the service order is the welcome. So I will grab the welcome. We'll add a new cue here. We'll call this the welcome. And any talking point is pretty much all done with presets. So we are in a spot in our service where the welcome, we're going to go to our message lighting so that the house lights come up here. We're going to turn our spots. I like to turn them off first. That clears anything from the worship preset that we were just on for that whole song. And then we're going to go to speaking open. We are in a section of our service where we're using the open iris setting, so we're using open here. And then the last thing that I do is I go to presets, stage, and we set the stage to our sermon color look. So that gets the colors for the series. It sets all the backdrop to what we need it to be. So that's our welcome. After that, we have a spiritual direction. Spiritual direction, I'm going to keep the same lighting with the exception that I'm going to bring the house lights down for worship mode. And I'm going to make that a really, really, really long fade. It's like a 1-minute spiritual direction, so I'm going to get like a good 20-second fade there. That way they come down really gradually over time and help to make it seem a little less abrupt. That's one of my goals in lighting always, is so that the people sitting in the seats don't feel like all of a sudden like the whole auditorium shifted into song mode. Like, I like it to happen kind of gradually so that everything feels nice and flowy and transitions smoothly. So a nice long fade down will get the room dark for singing without it feeling too abrupt. Next up is another new song called House of the Lord. And I'm going to do the exact same thing I did with Open the Gates. I'll pick a color, I'll walk through the song, and I'll make sure I've got lighting that makes sense at all points of the song. I won't bore you watching me do that. What I will do, though, is we'll go to the next song is Promises. And Promises, if you look, is a song that I actually already have a cue list for. See, I've got one that I made in January of 21. So the way I get those in, there's a couple ways you can do it. The way I like to do it, I like to go to Edit, and I'll find it in here. Promises. You can use the search function if you want. So that'll open up that cue list here in its own tab. So what I can do now, I can take these cues, copy them, and then just paste them in right afterwards. And so now you can see I have Promises in here. So that song's got nice blue lighting, and we can work our way through. And that whole song is already done for me because I've already done it once before. So if I've got something that I can use, I will reuse it. There's no reason to recreate the wheel, but every once in a while it's worth checking, because sometimes, you know, if we were at one point going from Promises into, I don't know, something, I may have ended it a certain way that I don't like anymore, so I'll check and make sure that I feel good about that. Or like if we changed lighting designs recently, like it may be programmed for the old lighting, and so I may have to go through and change it. So those templates are really helpful, but you do have to go through and check and make sure that they're still behaving correctly. Yep, So after promises, I'll have to go back through and do House of the Lord here at some point. But promises, so we'll want to change the queue numbers. We want those to be 7, and again, go up by 0.1. After the end of promises is transition comments. Transition comments. I'm just going to leave the lighting as is for that. Nothing needs to change there. 9 is video announcements. And so we'll go to a video setting on the house lights for that. We'll turn the spots off, and we're going to make the stage black for video announcements. One thing I have started doing that I kind of like to do, I feel like it's helpful, is I'll take, during a video, rather than everything being completely dark in the room, I'll take these back lights here. I'll set them to like a really deep, as blue as I can get, and just like put them on like 15%. That just puts a little bit of a glow on the stage, so that if anybody's walking on stage or moving something on stage, they can kind of see what they're doing, but it doesn't, like, if you're in the room, you don't notice motion happening on stage. So a little bit of blue glow can kind of help make sure no one trips and hurts themselves or anything like that. After video announcements is our offering talk. Offering talk, so we'll want to get our house lights back for message. We want to get speaking. This time we can go to a closed iris preset because we will have time to have changed that. And again, our house lights, or our stage is going to get into its sermon look again for the offering talk. So we have an offering talk. After that is another talking point. We're taking our church-wide survey this week, so we're going to give some instructions there. That's going to be the exact same lighting look, so I don't even need to change anything. Next, we go to a countdown for our survey so that people have time to take the survey. And what I'm going to do during that point is I'm just going to pull the stage lights down so that our communicators have time to change spots. But I'm also going to do it pretty slowly. I'm going to do it over like 30 seconds. That's just a service planning thing. It has to do with how we've talked, and we want the person who's leading the service. You don't need to know this. Slow fade is what I want there. So I'm going to make it a slow fade. And just looking at it, I may need to pull some other lights down. So I think I'm also going to pull these lights down as well, and we'll just leave those backlights on. This is another good use for the timeline. So the house lights, or the front lights, will fade really well over the course of 30 seconds. If I tried to fade these lights over 30 seconds, they'd look terrible, because they're only on like 10% intensity to start. That means it's just like losing 1% every 3 seconds, and you'll see all those jumps happen. It's not super good. So what I'll do is I will go into my timeline here, and I'm going to grab those lights, which are these lights, and if I command all of these lights, so that is all of those lights. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them fade faster, so I want them to go in like 2 seconds. We'll go like, 2 seconds is good. And I want them to go right away at the beginning. So those lights will fade a lot faster than the rest of the spots will. Alrighty, after the survey countdown, we are into our message. First thing is some transition comments from our speaker. So spots will go to speaking with the closed iris setting. House lights should already be on message, but it doesn't hurt to add the preset again, and stage will go to sermon colors. And then we are into the message. Same deal. Nothing needs to change, but it's not a bad idea to refire all 3 of those presets. That way, if something funky happens, we can just play the message and they'll snap back. Last is closing comments. Same deal. All same presets, nothing changing. And the last thing is end of service, and for the end of the service, I just play this first cue again. So that is all the lighting cues except for this one song that I need to build yet. I will get that done off camera. and then we will come back, and after that we will talk about setting things up in order to do automatic light changes with Ableton. But we're kind of at a spot right now where if we wanted to, and I had a volunteer back here who I trusted with it, and it wouldn't be that difficult, we could literally have someone run our lights for us. So for example, when we get to the countdown, they could hit this play button and the lights would change for the countdown. And when we get to the open the gates, they could hit this play button and lights would change for open the gates. And then when it's time for that swell, they could do that. We could literally have someone sit back here and manually click through each of these, and it would look really good. But I'm gonna show you in the next video how to make the song lighting changes happen automatically. That way they happen at exactly the right time every time. Alright, so that is Vista. It's a lot of information. The things you'll want to remember most at the end of the day is that this is your visual representation of what's going on. So if you want to change something, you're just going to click on it and you're going to adjust whatever the parameters you want to adjust, and it will change that cue to look like that. Then you go to the next cue, and so on and so on. So that's Vista. Probably the most time consuming and trickiest part of what we do here, but is pretty cool because there's a real big visual impact on what you're doing. It's not by any means a behind the scenes kind of thing. You've got the ability to really give a lot of life and character to our worship services, so this is a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing it, and I think you guys will too.